Hello and welcome to Effective Teaching Strategies. Today we're going to look at three main areas. First, to define instructional strategies. Two, explore the range of instructional skills. Three, differentiate between questioning strategies when used when teaching. What are instructional strategies? Instructional strategies are approaches teachers may take to achieve learning objectives. There are 5 instructional approaches, and based on this visual here, we have direct instruction, indirect instruction, experiential learning, independent study, interactive instruction. So let's kind of practice understanding these different approaches to instruction. In which skill would you find the use of discussions? So the answer is interactive instruction. So in interactive instruction, you're interacting with your peers if you're the learner. And as a teacher, you're creating the environment for students to interact with each other, for them to engage in accountable talk that's relevant to what they are learning at that time. In independent study, you're not engaged in discussions. It's really a sole activity. You can do some form of discussions in experiential learning, but experiential learning is more geared toward experiencing the learning experience, and it's more geared towards such as internships, volunteerism, engaging in activities. But some discussions may exist. But the main mode here is interactive instruction. Let's do another one. In which skill would you find the use of guided inquiry? The answer is indirect instruction. So, instruction is not a direct process that's planned where specific things are learned at specific times. Here, it is more of a guide. The teacher guides the learners, and they may learn somewhat differently in the process and may extract different forms of information of the greater concept. Nonetheless, guided inquiry is connected with indirect instruction. Let's do another one. In which skill would you find the use of interactive games? Here, we would connect that with experiential learning. Again, the interactive component could be viewed as interactive instruction, definitely, but here there is an assumption that there's a type of experience, and especially when you are using games, it can model both sides, but experiential learning allows students to put themselves in a context that may be unique. And so if you are putting a game together, students will experience the learning differently. Here you have a full spectrum of instructional skills. As you can see, there's a variety of activities that students could participate in during the process. So, for example, if you look at interactive instruction, you have buzz groups, brainstorming, forums, total class activities, cooperative learning, debates, tutorial groups, and etc. So there's a variety of activities that you can have here. But you'll notice role playing is here, and it's also here in experiential learning. Experiential learning includes role playing depending on the activity, as well as games, and also observations. This is where field trips come into play. Children do learn, the researchers show that children do learn through field trips. Conducting experience. Having children engage in research, collecting data is a great form of experiential learning if they're placed in the context of being a researcher. You also have model building if you're asking children to use a Connect kit and to build something. Let's say they're doing physics and they are developing a roller coaster in the classroom and they're using the Connect system as a way of doing that. That would be a great way of model building, or engaging in robot building. It's another way of doing it too. You also have skits, case studies, and so forth. So interactive and experiential learning can be viewed as very similar. And you can also see that indirect instruction has some overlaps with experiential, as well as overlaps with interactive instruction. So even though they're all in here, you'll see that there's case studies in indirect instruction, but then you can go over to experiential learning, and there's also case studies as well. Indirect instruction, you have guided inquiry, unguided inquiry, concept mapping, problem solving, which is also an interactive instruction, making decisions, composing case studies, very similar to here. Then direct instruction, I think it's very much so very clear. It's clear to understand that one because it's very teacher oriented. This is a teacher centered approach. Lecturing, stimulations, having a speaker speak to a group of learners, using movies, the visual aids like that, research report, constructing a report, using workbooks, tutorials, assigning questions, particular questions for the kids to complete, using handouts. These are very, very clear-cut ones to do, okay? So now let's go on to the next level, which is looking at questioning, okay? And we're going to look at questioning and how questioning can help us here. Question is a universal teaching strategy. Questions can be differentiated according to student needs. Questioning techniques can encourage the widest spectrum of student participation. So now we're going to look at 4 main questioning strategies: convergent strategy, divergent strategy, evaluative strategy, and reflective strategy. Convergent strategy. It elicits short responses from students and focuses on lower levels of thinking. This is knowledge level. This is very kind of reciting back, giving back what you've given the kids. So the children are going to respond to you with very simple instructions, responses. Divergent strategy is the opposite of convergent strategy. It can invoke a wide range of student responses by encouraging students to provide rich responses rather than right or wrong answers. So now you'll have them explain, why do you think that? And you're just kind of eliciting a richer array of responses. There is no right or wrong answer. It's more about how you share your point of view, state an argument, and elaborate on that. The evaluative strategy. This is an extension of the divergent strategy but with an evaluative component. So you're evaluating, you're assessing, you're critiquing a particular content. Reflective strategy. This questioning strategy draws from the Socratic method and requires students to develop higher order thinking. Bad questioning habits. Answering the questions yourself. So that means you ask the students the question and did not give them sufficient wait time. That's the next part. Not having sufficient wait time for them to answer it. So it's asking the questions such as, why do you think Langston Hughes wrote that poem? Oh, well, I think it was because that, again, is a bad habit when you are not allowing the children to respond to the questions. And also not giving them sufficient time. Do not get nervous by silence. Silence is not a bad thing. Giving the children time to process the question is a good thing. And next, selecting the same students all the time or exhibiting favoritism. Sometimes teachers may feel that, oh, I have to choose a child. I'm going to choose the child that tends to raise their hand up all the time. It's okay to choose a child that's not raised their hand up, but create an environment that says it's okay, do the best that you can, and help them to feel very comfortable. It takes time, but we do not want children to feel like they have to kind of stay to themselves or they do not want to participate in the class. You may need to ask them why, but definitely always try to have an array of students with whom you choose responses from. So, instructional strategies include 5 core areas, ranging from direct instruction to experiential learning. Questioning strategies should encourage students to develop their cognitive abilities and higher order thinking skills. So it's not about what they know and just basic knowledge questions, but it's how they synthesize it, how they evaluate what they're learning, how they critique it, how they assess it, how they reflect upon it. Engaging in higher order thinking skills is definitely something that teachers should try to encourage to their questioning. And using sufficient wait time as students are participating in their activity, allowing them to respond, and that means process the information before they actually respond. So this way students will be able to have enough time to actually process the information and respond to questions. So, what kinds of lessons tend to lend themselves to the use of convergent, divergent, and evaluative reflective questions? As you participate in this week's activities, think of this question and think of the different activities that you see in the videos, even in your practice. Look at what kinds of questions are being asked and what types of lessons lend themselves to the use of convergent, divergent, evaluative, and reflective questions. Thank you.